bars in it. Okay, to perform an analysis on 487,000 bars would take quite a long time. Sentient Trader has various things that automatically work to speed things up. Now, when Sentient Trader is working intraday, if you're working with data that has a resolution of 1 minute, you need to perform an analysis, make a trading decision on that data in much less than a minute, obviously. Otherwise, what's the point? If it takes 15 minutes to perform an analysis on a chart that has 1 minute bars, you're going to fall behind. Okay, so Sentient Trader has a fairly complex process actually in place, which enables it to speed things up, so that it will perform an analysis on a 1 minute chart generally in under 10 seconds. Okay, but in order for that analysis to be a good analysis, there's a dilemma, because yes, you've got very detailed data, 1 minute data, but on the other hand, the other thing that makes a good analysis is having lots of data. So how do you get it to perform an analysis very fast and yet have lots of data? And the answer to that is by using inheritance. So what happens is it performs, if you like, a rough analysis using daily data. I call it rough because at the 1 minute level it's very rough. Okay, it performs a rough analysis using daily data. Then it refines that analysis using 4-hour data. Then it refines it again using 1 hour data. Then 15-minute data. Then 5-minute data, and finally all the way down to the 1 minute. So your if the analysis wasn't inherited from the next time frame up, what would be the effect on the time frame in question? The effect would be that the analysis would probably not be as good, because it has no awareness of the much longer cycles. The 1 minute chart, and let's take a look at the 1 minute chart. There is the 1 minute chart, our live analysis system at the moment. That 1 minute chart actually, although if you have a look at the phasing analysis presented at the bottom of the chart, this 1 minute chart is plotting phasing analysis going up to 6 days. So it is tracking cycles up to 6 days. But because it is inheriting from this daily chart over here, in fact, the software has an awareness, if you like, if you can talk about software having an awareness, the software has an awareness of cycles going all the way up to 18 months. Okay, that is really, really powerful, because when it's performing its analysis down to the 3 minute level of detail, it has an awareness of how long the 18-month cycle is in this data. Okay, so that's really powerful. That was a really, really long, off-the-topic answer to your question. I don't know whether it answered your question. I hope it did. Jose, is it a good idea to use 240-minute chart for speeding up positioning the 40-day cycle in the daily chart? Jose, yes. You must. If you're working intraday, you must have a 240-minute chart. And as a matter of interest, the time frames of these charts are not arbitrary. I didn't just thumb suck these figures. There is a very important ratio that you must bear in mind. The time ratio between your charts must be between 3 and 6 to 1. Okay, so you cannot have a daily chart and then an hourly chart, because Sentient Trader cannot read. It cannot get over the jump of refining a longer term analysis if the time ratio is 24 to 1, as it would be between daily and hourly. So you must make sure that your time ratio between your intraday charts is always between 3 and 6 to 1. So from daily, you would have to go to either a 4-hour or 8-hour chart. Our Sentient Trader doesn't work with 8 hours, so it has to be 4 hours. Then you go to the hourly, then the 15-minute, then the 5-minute, then the 1 minute, and you can't leave any of those out. And I wouldn't recommend, as a matter of interest, going hourly, 10-minute, and then 1 minute, because then you get a 10 to 1 ratio. So the 10-minute chart's not of much use, I don't believe. But perhaps you're asking whether you could simply have an end-of-day daily chart and a 240-minute chart. 240-minute chart is 4 hours. Perhaps you're asking whether it's a good idea to work with end-of-day and a 4-hour chart to refine the position, just to fine-tune your timings on end-of-day trading. It's an extremely good idea. The true sort of power of using cycles, I believe, is being able to look at the shorter and shorter cycles and fine-tune the timing of the shorter and shorter cycles to watch the to find the exact timing of the really long cycles. Something really interesting is happening in the euro to US dollar at the moment, and that is that I believe that we're approaching a really long trough. If you look at the daily picture, we're coming into either an 80-day trough, or in fact it might prove to be the 18-month cycle trough. Over here it's happening now, and the market's coming down really hard, and we're waiting for that to happen. Watching an 18-month trough form on a 1 minute chart is really exciting. And I mean, I don't want to sort of jump to conclusions, but if you have a look at what's happened here since we started this webinar, you're getting a really strong, powerful kick-up move like that. It's really exciting watching really long-term cycle troughs come in on a 1 minute chart. Well, I don't know. Perhaps I'm weird. I find that exciting. I guess everybody enjoys different things. I don't know. Anyway, so I hope that sort of answers that question. Andy, don't the larger gaps get in the way of the short-term analysis, though? Okay, and Andy asked a question before we started. I'm not sure if they're connected, but let me answer that now. If you scroll right up in the chat window, you'll see Andy has a question. About real-time analysis. Given that the 60-minute cycle is really too short to trade, which is what I was talking about last week, it is too short to trade practically. What suggestions about trading the longer cycles do I have, especially concerning the weekend gaps in data? That's a really, really interesting question, a very important question. Also, would this be at all possible for non-forex instruments that have daily gaps? Okay, so here's my recommendation for trading longer cycles. The 100, there is no doubt the live analysis system shows it that the euro to US dollar market, and in fact we do the same thing, although we don't make it publicly available yet. We do the same thing on the S&P 500. Has a heartbeat of roughly an hour. The live analysis system is clear evidence of that, but it's not practical to trade at that kind of level. But as soon as you move up to the 160-minute cycle, it is very practical to trade 160-minute cycle. The 160-minute cycle is a very practical cycle to trade. Okay, it is much easier. And in fact, we trade the 160-minute cycle using 5-minute bars. That way, you're only making a trading decision every 5 minutes. If the analysis takes about 15 seconds, then as a percentage of the bar, that's a very small percent. It's about 5% of the bar, as opposed to 25% of the bar working off 1 minute bars. 1 minute bars are exciting and they're lovely to look at, but they're not very practical, I don't believe, in terms of trading. 5 minute bars are much more practical. So the 160 minute cycle, I also think it's a very interesting one. The 5-hour cycle proves to be very reliable. Again, 5-hour cycle we trade using 5-minute bars. So again, you're looking at only less than 5% of your bar is taken up with performing the analysis and making the trading decisions. The 5-hour cycle proves to be very reliable. I know there are some of our Australian users. I don't know if they're with us today. There are some Australian users that I have spoken about the 5-hour cycle, and they don't believe in the 5-hour cycle and believe that there is an 8-hour cycle. That's a really interesting debate, but it's very academic when it comes to working with Sentient Trader. You should be aware that Sentient Trader allows for variation, of course, according to Hurst's cyclic principle of variation, it allows for a variation in wavelength of a cycle from 65% to 150%, which means that the 5-hour cycle can in fact cause sorry, I just saw a news flash that I was talking about causing something. The 5-hour cycle will be found by Sentient Trader to be anything from about 3.5 to 8 hours. For those traders who believe in the 8-hour cycle, you'll notice that the live analysis system, as we speak, and I'm showing you the live image of our live analysis system. This was 2:32. This chart was only analyzed and sent up to our server 2 or 3 minutes ago, and you can see at the bottom right of the chart a 7.2-hour cycle. That is not Sentient Trader working with a nominal model of 8 hours. It's Sentient Trader working with a nominal model of 5 hours. So I call it the 5-hour cycle, but in fact the 5-hour cycle is often almost 8 hours in length. The true length of it is constantly varying. So I think the 160-minute and 5-hour cycles are very good cycles to trade intraday. I believe there might also be a half-day cycle, although the default nominal model of Sentient Trader doesn't work with a half-day cycle. So that's speculation, but I think there is a fairly good, reliable half-day cycle, which might be worth looking at and trading. Andy asked a very interesting question there, which is, what about the gap that happens over the weekend? So let me go back to Sentient Trader. Let's have a look at this live stuff. Back to let's go to the 1-minute chart, which is the it is doing all the trading. So just to remind everybody, this is the live analysis system workspace. This is actually it's just a backup that we make on a Monday morning, so it's not connected live. And let's just go back in time, and let me just sort of keep zooming out and show